Welcome back to Flick Snacks and Knickknacks. It's been a long time, and I have waited a really long time to be able to say that again. I'm buying a house soon, so the setup's going to look much better, but I just couldn't wait to get another video out. It's been far too long. A lot of you have been really patient with me, and I'm really ready to get out videos and do some collaborations again. But today, we are talking about the three Popeye horror movies that have come out in 2025 already.
Monster!
I am what I am.
He's Popeye. He's back.
I'm telling you, when you're gone, you're gone.
Shiver Me Timbers, coming soon.
Hopefully, maybe, they get added to the Pooniverse, which is a real thing. I'm hoping that I get a review out soon of the Winnie and Pooh Blood and Honey movies. There are two of them. You'll definitely want to see what I have to say about those. So make sure you like, subscribe, comment what else you want to see. I have plans to kind of do some obscure anime reviews, obscure found footage movies, niche horror, that sort of thing. That's kind of the direction I'm going to go, which I've always kind of been niche. Just going to kind of continue with that, and let me know what you guys think and what you might want to see. If it's mainstream, there's a chance that I do a review on it, but I'm not as big as I used to be about going opening night and seeing these big blockbusters come out. I just have not been a fan of most of the stuff they put out lately, so I don't really have much interest in reviewing them. But if you want to see them, just let me know. But we're about to talk about these movies. First up, we have Shiver Me Timbers, that released on April 1st, 2025. Yes, on April Fool's Day. It is directed by Paul Stephen Mann, who also wrote it. It stars Brendan Nelson, Amy Mackey, David Hollows, Tony Greer, and Stephen Carell. It had a budget of about 120,000 US dollars, which was 100,000 pounds, and it was filmed in only 10 days, so that's pretty impressive. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 13 minutes. In 1986, Northern California, Olive Oil and her brother Castor Oil and friends go on a camping trip to see the meteor shower with Halley's comet. But the night turns into horror as the meteor transforms Popeye into an unstoppable killing machine. Does it sound ridiculous? Yes. Is it? Absolutely. Pros. So this movie has a lot of fun with the premise and origin story that it gives us. It does feel like this is one that maybe wasn't originally meant to be a Popeye film. I can't say that for sure. It just has that feel, and if you watch it, you'll know what I mean. It just kind of feels like they started plugging in names and this character to kind of make it a Popeye film once the rights to that became openly available. But like I said, I don't know if that's true. I kind of hope it is for the sake of this film. But it's kind of like some of the Hellraiser movies that recently, or not so recently, but you know, in the mid-2000s, they kind of took this detective film or whatever, or the supernatural film, and somehow incorporated it into being a Hellraiser movie. This is a pretty decent setting for a Popeye horror movie. Anywhere from the fact that it's in Northern California, which can be wooded, which you have a lot of wood scenes, forest scenes, as well as being kind of on the coast, which would make sense for a Sailor Man. Also, a lot of the names of the characters are going to bring back some of that nostalgic feeling you might have for the Popeye character. And also, all of having a brother named Castor is hilarious. I don't know if that's canon. I honestly don't know enough about the original Popeye series to be able to tell you, but either way, it's freaking hilarious. There are a couple of really cool kills in this film. A lot of gore and action, kind of fast-paced, violent kills. It only ramps that up as the film goes on, which is a good and a bad thing, and you'll see me kind of talk about that in some of the cons, but it does have some good kills. You're going to get you know, that itch scratched if that's what you're watching these films for. Nothing else, just a couple of good kills out of, you know, a handful that it might have. I have a kill count coming up, so we'll take a look at that. But yeah, there's a couple good ones and some funny ones too. even though some of the acting in this film is not really up to par, there are some likable characters, which you don't see in a lot of these types of movies, especially really any horror movies, but especially the lower budget horror movies. It's hard to have characters you like. It seems like you're just all rooting for them to die. That's not necessarily the case in this film, and that was a welcome change. Since I've been watching a lot of these movies lately, it was nice to have some characters I was actually like, oh man, or yes, they made it, or, whatever the case may be. Holy shit, is that Froggy fresh? Cons. Most of these jokes don't really land for me. I don't know if that can be chalked up to the acting or the dialogue or the writing, but it's just the timing of the humor and everything and the delivery of it, and it feels off. So a lot of times when they're trying to make something funny, especially in the first half of the film, it just makes the film feel like it's dragging and like there's a lot of pointless dialogue that's supposed to maybe be making you laugh or chuckle, but it's kind of not. And then you go from like the slapstick humor at the beginning of the film to more of like an Evil Dead 2 style of humor over the top by the end of it. And the tone doesn't match. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And it was really hard for me to stay engaged with the story of this one. Also, the fact that Popeye was kind of an old man, regular old sailor man who gets turned into this killing machine that looks a little bit more like the Popeye we know by a meteor during a meteor shower, it just does not, it's not a good origin story for me. It really, some people online disagree with me. I've seen some reviews that are pretty positive for this movie and mentioned kind of the direction they went with the origin story. I'm just not a fan of it. I'm not saying I didn't enjoy the movie. I'm just saying, give me a minute, I'll get to it. But just the origin story and kind of the premise, the backstory, I guess, of these three movies. This one was the one with the meteor shower, and it just did not land for me. I did not enjoy that part at all. Also, yes, the acting. Yes, this was shot on a $100,000 budget in 10 days. So that you definitely have to limit your expectations a little bit. But besides Amy, who played Olive, Steven, who played Lang, and the guy who played Wes, Ty Moore, he wasn't too bad either. But besides them, really kind of struggled to stay engaged with the characters in the film just because of the acting and some of the dialogue and things like that. It's okay, and you can overlook bad acting, and I can overlook bad acting a lot of times, but when there's humor involved and high stakes horror, those are two things that really do require some acting chops, in general. And so that's why it stands out a lot more in these types of films when the acting is pretty bad. But a lot of these people don't even have IMDb credits or photos on their IMDb page, which means they don't have IMDb Pro, which means this could be some of their first projects or their only projects. So you do have to give a little bit of leniency there too. By far, the worst part of this film was the fact that they chose to make Popeye CGI. You have a $100,000 budget. You're obviously not spending a lot of time making this film. And you're taking this character and making him CGI. And not only that, but a lot of his movements were repeated, like over and over. Like they used the same clip of him over and over and over again. And there's one particular scene that goes on for minutes and minutes. I wish I would have timed it. It goes on for so long, and it probably felt like it was longer than it was, but it just felt like it went on for so long. And he's just doing the same motion over and over again, and it's this awful CGI. He looks completely fake, and his facial expressions don't change. Just terrible. Just a really, really, really bad decision. And we'll talk about how the other Popeyes looked when we get to those movies, but this was just abysmal. Just so hard to watch. It was a choice, and it was a bad one. I didn't like it. I didn't like that. Okay, so the kill count. There are 9 kills in this film, and it's only just over an hour, so 9 kills, that's really not that bad. You get a couple really good ones, a couple not so good ones, and some that are like, oh, that was okay. Some of the practical effect ones and some of the blood and gore were decent, and they were fun to watch. So yeah, 9 kills for Shiver Me Timbers. This film does not have a Rotten Tomatoes score. I guess it doesn't have enough or any reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It has a 4.1 on IMDb, which honestly kind of surprised me. I thought it might be a little bit lower than that. And I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be right on par with what the majority of people on IMDb think. I give this one a 4 out of 10. Next up, we have Popeye's Revenge. Released February 13th, 2025. It is directed by William Steed and stars Emily Mogilner, Danielle Ronald, Connor Powles, Bruno Cryan, and Stephen Murphy. I'm pretty sure I said at least one of those names wrong. It has a runtime of 1 hour and 19 minutes. The legend of Popeye haunts a group of counselors as they intend to open a summer camp. Honestly, there's a lot more to this story than that. I'm not sure why they went with this as the summary on IMDb. Well, I guess you'll have to watch this one to find out. Or don't. Maybe you can decide when I'm done with the review. Pros. The acting in this film is much better than in Shiver Me Timbers. I was actually kind of surprised with some of the performances in this one. Not that they're all good, and not that they're all consistently good, the ones that are, but it was a lot better, and I was pretty happy with that. Also, there's no CGI Popeye in this, so that's a major, major plus right off the bat. But you know what? I'm not to the cons yet. Let's just keep going. The location of this one is amazing. It gives me kind of a Friday the 13th vibe. The only thing I didn't love about it is it doesn't feel coastal. I can't even remember exactly where this is based, but it's more in the woods at a cabin, kind of like I said, like Friday the 13th-ish. So like I said, it was a little bit confusing in terms of like there wasn't really a coast shown. There were some ponds and a dock, like maybe a lake or something like that, if I remember right. But they're small bodies of water, so it does make me wonder what a sailor man is doing out there. That's the one gripe I have about the location, but it looks great for a film like this. The backstory here is a little bit better than Shiver Me Timbers. It's kind of like about a young Popeye who gets bullied, so he kind of fights back and then gets exiled. There's a lot more to it than that, but I'm going to try to keep it kind of brief so that I don't give any spoilers. But that's kind of hard because they way overcomplicate this film, which brings me to the cons. They way overcomplicate this film. There's like a whole 10-minute animated scene at the beginning of the movie explaining the backstory. And honestly, anytime you have to do that, that's not a good sign, not a good setup. You could have done completely without that and just kind of explained bits and pieces, kept it a little bit more vague and explained the bits and pieces throughout the film of why this is happening, why it's happening here, that sort of thing. But no, they just lay it all out there in like an animated format right at the beginning of the film, and it's odd. Again, it's a choice, just maybe not the right one. The guy that plays Popeye looks like, what's his name? Butters? Butterball. No, Butterbean. Butterbean, that's it. It's Butterbean. He doesn't say a word the whole time, and he's kind of always got this smirk or smiling. His brutality shows at times, but the sound design and shot choice hold back any potential that Kills may have had on paper. Then there's like this weird ghost stuff. There's this whole, the parents know what's going on, but we don't, and they don't, but we kind of do. And I don't know, it kind of gives like a little bit of a Nightmare on Elm Street vibes in that sense. But it's just, they like I said, they way overcomplicate this story in a 1 hour and 19-minute film about a killer Popeye. And perhaps it takes itself a little bit too seriously at times. And that's just, it's holding this film back, to be honest with you. They could have done a lot more with this if they would have done less with this, if that makes sense. I honestly feel like this film could have been better if they would have just made this an original killer slasher film character instead of making it a Popeye film. That might have been a better route, and perhaps it would have been a little bit better received. This one does increase the kill count by quite a bit. It gives us 15 kills, but like I said, there's just really no impact. There might be one or two-ish, that maybe three at the most, that had any kind of impact. The rest of them just don't hit hard enough, just don't really pack any kind of punch. Again, this one has no Rotten Tomato score. On IMDb, this one has a 3.5. Honestly, that's probably pretty accurate. It's a little lower than I'm going to give it. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10 because I did enjoy it a little bit more than Shiver Me Timbers, only if just because of the acting and the setting and backstory. That's about all that it has going for it. Other than that, Shiver Me Timbers is a close match with it. But yeah, I give this one a 5 out of 10. You notice so far no decimals. No 3.5s, no 4.7s. That's because these movies didn't take enough thought and effort that I had to put into them in order to break it down into decimals like that. Just even scores so far. And last, and maybe, but maybe not least, we have Popeye the Slayer Man. Toot toot. This is the film that got me into the very dark and very dirty rabbit hole of Popeye horror films that came out this year. When I saw this trailer a few months back, I really wanted to see this film. I thought it looked really fun. And so when I went to go finally watch it, I noticed there were 2 other ones. And I thought, had this bright idea, let's go ahead and watch all 3 of these in one night so I can do like one big review of it. I didn't realize at the time exactly what I was doing to myself. Released on March 21st, 2025, with a runtime of 1 hour and 28 minutes, this one's directed by Robert Michael Ryan and stars Jason Robert Stevens, Sean Michael Conway, and Elena Giuliano. What the fuck is up with all these people having 3 names? A curious group of friends sneak into an abandoned spinach canning factory to investigate the legend of the Sailor Man, who is said to haunt the factory and local docks. Pros. This film's origins and backstory are far better in my opinion. They don't overcomplicate it. They don't dive too deep into it. You do kind of figure some stuff out, but again, I'm not trying to give away too much. But this one's backstory and the Popeye in this film is so much better in my opinion than the other 2 films. I can't say more. You would just have to watch it. But like kind of some of the reveals and everything, which aren't big, they're not twists by any means, but I was kind of like, oh, that makes sense. Or, oh, I like that, you know, as opposed to the other films, which I didn't. Things from the Popeye lore are tied in, but they are changed a little bit, which I liked. Again, this one kind of gives, I've said this before, and there's a reason why. I mean, obviously, a lot of these slasher type films are influenced by the better slashers of the 80s. But it gives Freddy Krueger vibes. The way he moves, the way he walks, the way he kills, even the setting and location give kind of like Dream World Freddy vibes. Like this factory and the way he kind of menacingly stalks these people through it. And they show shadows and he comes through doorways and things like that. It's very Freddy Krueger-esque. The way Popeye looks is so much better in this film. He doesn't look like Butterbean. He's not CGI. They use practical effects, I believe, as like a mask effect on him, which I will admit, could be a lot better. It could be so much better. His face doesn't really move expressions, you know, and he kind of looks a little fake, but he looks more like Popeye, and he's a little bit more intimidating. So I really had no problems with the way that Popeye looked in this film, especially after watching the other 2. Any complaints I had about this Popeye and the way he looked went out the window when I watched the other 2 movies. The acting in this film is pretty good. It's as good, if not maybe a little bit better, than it is in Popeye's Revenge, and it's certainly better than it is in Shiver Me Timbers. There are a couple of bad performances in this, and some of the good ones are a little inconsistent again, but that's kind of what you get in these B-horror films. There's a lot of people in this film who haven't acted since or didn't act before, that sort of thing. Once again, all these are B movies, so of course that's going to be the case. But I did enjoy the actors in this film a little more. There are some likable characters, which there really weren't in Popeye's Revenge. That's another thing as a con for that movie I forgot to mention. But this one does have some likable characters, kind of like Shiver Me Timbers. And so that's always a plus in these movies. Again, another Freddy Krueger type of reference. Popeye talks in this film. The way he talks and kind of the one-liners he gives have a Freddy Krueger feel to them. Even the way he kills, and he'll say a one-liner. I mean, he's less comical than Freddy Krueger. He's a lot more dry, and doesn't seem like he's trying to be funny, but just these little one-lines like I am what I am and things like that. They're really funny, especially when you're just watching this movie with popcorn by yourself, just trying to enjoy it for what it is. There's a lot of that in this film. All in all, they created a much better Popeye and story that could be built upon in this one than they did the other 2 films. And I really do enjoy that. If there was going to be one of these Popeyes that's added to the Pooniverse, I definitely hope it's this one. Cons. The mood of this film is dark and dreary, which isn't always a bad thing, but when it kind of feels and looks like they have like that blue filter over the lens all the time, and it's always just got this bluish, grayish haze to it, I'm not a big fan of that. Unless it's a specific type of film in a specific type of setting. This just didn't match for me. You know, I feel like they could have used a little bit more color in this film, amped up the visual effects, and that would have helped a little bit. There are some really brutal and good kills, especially in the first half of the film. But in the second half, they begin to seem rushed and not thought out. Some of the kills in the second half to the last third of the movie kind of make you say, what? They really went out like that fast? And that's not a good thing at all. It makes it feel like maybe they didn't have a lot of the kills planned out, or they had to start cutting shooting schedules for time or budget constraints. I'm not exactly sure, but that should be when the kills start to ramp up, not when they start to feel rushed, especially since that's when some of the characters you've known for a while start to maybe die or get killed. Why are we not giving them a little bit more, a little bit more glory, a little more honor in a good death? But no, there's a couple in this film that are really going to disappoint, I think, everyone who watches this. Not as many kills as Popeye's Revenge, but more than Shiver Me Timbers. Popeye the Slayer Man has 11 kills, and some of them are pretty decent. This one does have a Rotten Tomato score of 49%. Not awful for this kind of movie. And it has an IMDb score, again, just like the last one, of 3.5 out of 10. I obviously enjoyed this film a little bit more than I did the other two, so it's going to get a little bit of a higher score. This one is getting a decimal, though. I give Popeye the Slayer Man a 5.7 out of 10. A lot of these films, mainly the low-budget horror movies, have the oddest pacing and tones. A lot of these kind of movies that I've seen, they sort of start off like slow and serious, and they carry the tone throughout, and then somewhere along the way, they just get completely batshit bonkers. Even if, like, the tonal change in comedy in Shiver Me Timbers threw me off. Just, like, going completely Evil Dead by the end of it, when it didn't have that vibe at all throughout the entire film. I watched another one, a found footage film on Found TV, which is a great app that I've been using, by the way, lately, called Wood Witch: The Awakening, that was serious for like the entire film. And all of a sudden at the very end, it just gets campy as shit. And I just don't understand why so many, it's like they don't know how to end a film. If you don't know how to end a film, you probably shouldn't make the film. Just my opinion. But anyway, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, share this with your friends, comment what you might want to see in the future. I'll be doing, like I said, more anime, more Pooniverse, more found footage horror, maybe foreign films, things like that, just niche things. So let me know what you want to see, and I will see you next time, I guess. Hopefully it's not as long of a hiatus as it was last time. I'll try to get a review out maybe next week. All right. Bye.